Hey guys, Nick Espinoza, your chief security fanatic here, and today we are talking about what you post on social media, because what you post can be used to track you if you're violating quarantine. Now, let me tell you what's going on here, and before I dive into that, I want to let you know that if you've been following me for a while, you probably know I'm from Chicago. I broadcast my radio show out of the Chicagoland area. I am basically here in Chicago. Now, we just came off a night, last night, early this morning, of looting on the basically on the Magnificent Mile here in Chicago. So it seems fitting that the example I'm about to show you here is from Chicago itself. Now, Chicago is doubling down on its efforts to enforce its emergency coronavirus travel order, and officials will now be reviewing social media posts of possible violators during this pandemic. Now, it was reported last week that officials may check social media feeds of suspected offenders to collect evidence for a possible citation. Now, suspected violators will be identified as such through, and I quote, contact tracing or other measures. Now, if you don't know anything about Chicago's emergency travel order that took effect on July 6th, it's mandating that those who arrive from states with surges in COVID-19 cases quarantine themselves for 14 days before arriving. And this as of last Friday, 22 states and Puerto Rico are on that list for the quarantine. So in other words, if I am traveling from one of those states, and I believe our next door neighbor in Indiana is actually one of those, if I travel from Indiana into Illinois, which I actually did last week for work, just via my car, there were signs out there that said, if you are basically coming from another state, you need to self-quarantine for 14 days. Now, Dr. Allison Arwady, who is the Chicago Department of Public Health, she's the commissioner of that, said, and I quote, one of the easiest ways to sort of get enough proof that there was potential of a violated quarantine order without me having to send out an inspector to do any sort of more aggressive follow-up is to collect basically social media and to quote, again, they're in any of the states that violated our order, and then a few days later they're in Chicago, and they're clearly out in Chicago, not just back, but at a restaurant or at the Bean or whatever it may be, and they're posting about that. That's an example of where we could use that proof to issue citations. So it's not just people coming in, driving in, let's say from wherever they are, or flying in through O'Hare that have to self-quarantine. If we spend a significant amount of time here in the state of Illinois, basically out of the state and come back before we are able to enter Chicago, we need to quarantine for 14 days as well. Now, here's what I found interesting in terms of her statements, and I quote her again. I don't want to overemphasize that we're somehow Big Brother in monitoring people's social accounts. We're absolutely not doing that, but where we already have a concern, it's one of the easiest ways to identify people who are not just breaking the travel order, but flaunting it publicly. So basically, if you're flying into Chicago from some quarantined state like Florida, for example, and you're sitting there, basically in Grant Park or Millennium Park, and you're taking pictures and all of this, they are going to find that, and if they suspect you, they can look through your social media and see that you, one, are from Florida, and two, have been posting in the same way that if I, as a resident, of Illinois, the state, if I go somewhere and come back, the Chicago within its city limits can do the same thing. And so I have a couple of thoughts on this that I think are relevant to basically everything in this in terms of privacy and surveillance. Chicago authorities would have no way of knowing who is and is not a tourist without stopping people and asking for an ID, or forcing hotels and services like Airbnb to disclose to the authorities this when they check in within the city limits. Now, by virtue of that, I don't think that they're monitoring all social media in real time, though it may be straightforward for them to find information in real time as people take pictures, post them, use hashtags like hashtag Chicago or whatever as they post these pictures, which means they could be monitoring Facebook for everything that is posted hashtag Chicago, see you out of state traveler at the Bean, or, I was going to say Cubs game, but that's not going to happen, and then go ahead and find wherever you are or possibly send you a citation. Now, though, that I'm a privacy advocate. I rail against any overreach whatsoever from a government, a company, an app, whatever is here to violate your privacy. I don't think this is the case, though. If you're on vacation and you're posting pictures to a social media account that isn't locked for privacy, and the authorities can see it just like anybody else on the planet, like if I can find you and look you up on social media and you don't have those basically pictures set to private, then I can just find you, and I am not in law enforcement in the city of Chicago. That's not really a violation of your privacy, because you did that to yourself. You made that choice to do whatever that is. Now, I can fully understand that by default, if Facebook is keeping everything open and you are ignorant of that, I can understand that. But at the end of the day, if you're watching this, you know that you can set privacy controls, and we will get to that. Now, some of you basically here are watching me or following me on my public Facebook profile while I post these videos, podcasts, articles, other stuff as well. I also have a private Facebook page, which is basically required of me to have the public one that everybody sees, or you're possibly watching, listening to me on right now. I post to that private account, I post nothing that is personal. No pictures of myself, no photos of myself or relatives or friends, and the privacy settings are all the way up. I don't even think you could send that account basically a friend request, and it's not even in my name, because I basically don't want to use it for anything except administering the public Facebook account for the most part. Now, I say that to say that we can control what we do and not share our stuff with the world. We can also control those public settings, and though I have no illusions, for the record, that Facebook itself can see everything that I do on their platform. So, you are giving Chicago or any other government the rope with which they can hang you on if you are posting your pictures and they are not locked down and they suspect you of violating Chicago law, which is right now quarantining. So, here are my tips for avoiding this situation, assuming you absolutely have to post all of your stuff online. That is the era that we live in. There are many people that live and die by the clicks, the likes, the whatever that they get. I am not one of these people, but if you absolutely have to post everything that you do online, follow these steps. I think this will help. 1, make sure everything is set to private so that non-friends cannot see your stuff. So if all that the city of Chicago is doing is a surface scan, they're not actually going to be seeing anything in your actual profile itself. Post your pictures. Here's my second point. Post your pictures when you get home. Just do them when you get home. I'm not trying to show you how to defeat a quarantine here, but these are things that we should be doing, because this also helps with not telling the burglars that you're out of town. And if somebody is, let's say you're from a nice neighborhood that, possibly has a little bit of crime, and you're out there posting pictures, basically half a continent away, you are a ripe target for possibly getting hit. Step number 3, or point number 3, if you're only interested in sharing with family or close friends, then set up your own secure ecosystem that keeps you away from the data mining behemoths that are the Facebooks, Twitters, and Googles of the world. Set up a Slack account for your family. It's free to do. It's internal communication. They have apps for every type of device. It's way more secure. There's no advertising on their platform. You can post pictures, and those people critical in your life, your family and friends that are also on your Slack account, can see them and keep it away from prying eyes. This is a great ecosystem also for instant messaging. If you have children, or let's say a spouse, I got to go to the supermarket, let me send a message and say this is the laundry list, or hey, where are you? I'm at soccer practice, come pick me up, or whatever that is. Point number 4. Enable multi-factor authentication on all of your accounts. This really has nothing to do with the city of Chicago looking at you or another government, but it's just good advice, so I always add it. Step number 5, encrypt and enable good passwords in your device. Law enforcement cannot compel you to give up a password or unlock your device with a PIN code or a password. They cannot tell you or force you to punch it in, but they can compel you to open it up with a biometric like your fingerprint or your Face ID. So heads up to you. But if you encrypt that phone, if it's lost or stolen, now you've got good data security practices there. Or if the phone is confiscated from law enforcement and you don't have a biometric, that phone really they can't get into without the order of a judge. Number 6, disable notifications on your lock screen. If you are, for some reason, arrested or detained by law enforcement, let's say for violating a quarantine or whatever that is, they cannot then scrape information that comes up, which is possibly public domain. So if I turn on basically hit the power button on your phone and it comes to your lock screen and you have notifications from whoever, this is information they can possibly gather, as it is right now in the moment, according to the law, considered public. And I actually did a video on this a month or two regarding that. And finally, number 7, oh, and I'm sorry here, we're actually going through a bad thunderstorm at the moment. But number 7, and my last point here is, turn off GPS and location tagging on your phone for photos, etc. And so unless you're standing in front of something recognizable like the bean right smack in the middle of Chicago by the lake, you're probably not going to be noticeable if somebody grabs that and tries to run a geolocation. So if you're just standing behind a nondescript building or in a hotel room or something, it's not going to look like anything recognizable in terms of landmarks, and so they're not going to tag it back to Chicago or wherever it is. My point being here is that these are good privacy controls for everybody to have, regardless of this entire issue, with this. And by virtue of that, I also say stay healthy out here, and please make sure you are following the local laws, whether you're in Chicago with me or somewhere else. It's very important that we are keeping all of each other healthy and looking out for each other, during this entire pandemic. So I want everybody to stay safe. I don't want anybody skirting the law, but I do want you to know your rights, and I do want you to understand your privacy controls. And so here we are. And so that is your news of the day. And please like, share, follow me here on Facebook and Twitter at NickAESP. And please feel free to subscribe to me at YouTube as well. And as always, stay safe and stay online. And apparently at the moment, stay away from Chicago. Thanks, guys.